Welcome back to Thuja Hill. I'm so glad to have you here today, as today is the opening season of our favorite blueberry farm. Now, we do have our own blueberries over here at Thuja Hill, and they actually are pretty well established. They've been here for about 3 years, and so they're looking good and they're growing. But it is our tradition to go picking at this you-pick farm, and so we've just got to do it. You know what they say, make hay while the sun shines, and the sun is shining today. So we're gonna go ahead and get ourselves a big glut of blueberries today. I will wash them when we come home, and then tomorrow morning I'm planning on making a blueberry tart with the fruits of our labors. So I will take you with me today, as I always do, as we go pick blueberries at the local blueberry farm. And then tomorrow morning we will go through a little tutorial with instructions and the recipe for how to make a blueberry tart. So come on, let's go. Okay friends, we're back in the kitchen at Thuja Hill, and we're gonna take advantage of the beautiful blueberries that we picked. So as you can see here, we picked a lot of blueberries. Both my daughter and I had 2 big buckets full, and so this is just half of what we have, and we have definitely been enjoying the other half for fresh eating purposes. So with the fruits of our labor, no pun intended, we're gonna go ahead and make a blueberry tart today. We're going to be using einkorn flour and maple sugar, so if you don't have those, you can just adapt to what you do have in your pantry. But I wanted this to be a bit more on the healthy side, and so that is what I'll be using today. So we're going to start out by making the crust for this tart, and it's just a really basic pie crust recipe like you would use for quiche. You're also going to want to have one of these pans. This is a great pan I bought years ago at Sur La Table, and it has served me well. I used to make all of my quiches out of this, because what you can do is just push the bottom out and you can get almost a perfect tart doing it like this. So if you don't have one of these, don't worry. It just makes the tart more authentic. So that's what we're going to be using today. Okay, so like I said, we're going to get started making our crust first. So for this recipe, you're going to need 1 cup of flour, and then we're going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of a good sea salt. We're going to use 2 tablespoons of sugar, and again today I'm using maple sugar, which works just like regular cane sugar. It's just a little bit healthier. Okay, then we're going to use a 1/2 stick of cold butter. You want to make sure that the butter is cold so that your pie crust sticks together properly. If you use melted or soft butter, you're going to have a really tough time making a good pie crust. So make sure your butter is cold. All right, and now that we've got our butter in, we're going to add a tablespoon of white vinegar. Okay, and then I like to use my hands to put my dough together. I just find it comes together better. All right, I've got my dough all mushed together. And now what we're gonna do is roll it out into a nice flat sheet so that we can put it in our tart pan. Okay friends, I have rolled out my pie crust into my tart pan. And now I'm just gonna do a little trick and take my rolling pin and roll it over the tart edges. so that the pieces on the edge come off clean. Okay, so now that that's done, we are actually gonna stick this in the freezer so that it doesn't get too soft while we're getting the filling of the tart prepared. So now we're gonna go ahead and get the filling of our tart prepared. So what you will need for the filling is 1 cup of sugar. Again, I'm using maple sugar today. We're gonna use 2 tablespoons of flour. We're gonna be using 1/8 of a teaspoon of a good cinnamon. And we're gonna use 4.5 cups of berries. We're gonna go ahead and mix this together. And now it's time to go ahead and fill our crust with this beautiful mixture. But before we do that, we're gonna go ahead and preheat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, we've got our oven preheating, and we're gonna go ahead and fill our tart pan now with this beautiful, lovely, sweet mixture of berries, sugar, a little bit of flour, and cinnamon. And the liquid is gonna come from the berries while they're cooking. So we don't need a whole lot of liquid added to this because as the berries cook down, they will release their delicious juices. And what I'm gonna do after this cooks for an hour in a 400-degree oven is I'm gonna add about a cup of berries on top, and I'm gonna just push them down. And then I'm gonna let those berries cool on top of the hot berries, and it will just be more filling to enjoy. All right, friends, so I've got my tart all ready to go in the oven. This will cook at 400 degrees for the next hour, and then I will take it out and press a cup of fresh berries on top of the warm filling and let it cool completely. At that point, it will be ready to serve and enjoy. All right, friends, that is it. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed the blueberry picking extravaganza as well as the blueberry tart recipe. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And as usual, I look forward very much to seeing you in another brand new video very soon. May God bless you and yours. Goodbye for now.